our Chairman of Council, Professor Francis Kibera, our Chancellor, Dr. Kibathi Mbugwa, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Thuo Kuria, members of the Council present, Professor Mukunya, Professor Shalo, our keynote speakers, our moderators, all our invited scholars in attendance, researchers who are supposed to present their papers this morning, student participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Kuria Thuo, to make the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bibi, the Chancellor, the Governing Council Chairperson, and the Council members present, the keynote speakers, the moderators and conference participants. Mine is basically to welcome everybody to this conference, and especially on behalf of the Grace University Senate and the staff and students, please feel welcome to our third Multidisciplinary Research Conference. So today, we have two guest speakers who will be talking to us on at least two very critical issues. So we have Mr. Bernard Njoroge, who is here with us. Mr. Njoroge is an alumnus of University of Nairobi, and we'll be doing an intro for him. But he's the managing director of Sky Foods Limited. So if you have ever enjoyed treetop juice, he's actually the man behind it. So also with us is Professor Kennedy Mutundu. Professor Mutundu is just our neighbor here from Mount Kenya University. He's the Dean of the School of Social Sciences, and he'll be also one of our keynote speakers today, and he'll be talking on a very critical issue. I also have the pleasure of introducing to the participants the moderators who are present today. Others will be joining us as we go on. Well, speaking on behalf of the Grace University management, especially, I just want to confirm that organizing and actualizing a research conference is one of the key strategic objectives of this university and any other university for that matter. And it is very important that universities create such forums because they create a platform for sharing knowledge by both academicians and practitioners. And by doing so, this sharing of knowledge actually helps us become more versed with issues from an informed perspective. And when that happens, because in our typical life, wherever you are, whether it's just within your interaction with the society or your workplace, we have so many challenges we have to deal with. And how you deal with issues really depends on the knowledge and expertise you have. So I can only wish you a fruitful interaction and a very good learning experience during the course of this conference, which will be today and tomorrow. And really wish to thank all of you for creating time from your busy schedules to be with us. So I wish you all the best, and God bless you. I just wanted to invite the Chancellor maybe to say a few remarks. He might be having something he'll want to say. And then after that, we'll have the chairman of the council also make a small presentation as part of his opening remarks. So, Mr. Chancellor, sir, you're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning once again. Like you heard, my name is Kibathi Mbugwa. I have the privilege of being the Chancellor of this lovely, beautiful university. Isn't it a nice place? a nice place to be. Yes, and to continue being nice, to continue growing, and to continue changing the world and society as it is. I'll just start with the comments which the Vice Chancellor ended with, that he hopes that today's conference will not be a time which, it will be a time where time will be used well. And what I can clearly say, I think it will be in a place where there is so many of us who have come together in the course of trying to change society for the better. There is nothing else which can come out from there except me moving from where it is one should be. But what I'll ask each one of us is, whatever it is that you get in this conference, seek ways of using it and make sure it's something which can be change society, transform society from where it is to where it should be. There's one story which I thought I can quickly come up with, the one of the mobile phone. Let me ask, who has a Nokia phone? How many of us have got mobile phones? A Nokia. How many? 1, 2. Okay. Okay, the rest of us are humble. Maybe we don't want to say exactly what brand we have. But why I thought of bringing that out is a few years ago, when the mobile phones were starting out in this country, not in this country, world over, the mobile phone called Nokia had 50% of the market share of all smartphones in the world. Over 50% of all mobile phones in the world, forget about anywhere in the country. In this country alone, the first phone which anybody ever had used to be a Nokia. And for those who had a bigger phone which was upgraded, as was a Nokia 3310 for many years. It was something which was known by nearly everybody. But something happened along the journey of Nokia. They did not move together with technology and innovation. There's something which happened within its journey where it stopped moving forward, but stagnated, and they were comfortable in the place where they were. When that happened, it changed everything. The Apple came up with a new software called the iOS, and that took over the market. But what I'm trying to get to is that Nokia stagnated because of only one thing. It didn't embrace innovation, it didn't embrace change, it got comfortable where it was. So my take from that, and to all of us here, is that we must be the change agents to be able to move from where it is we are to where we should be. So when we think about today and the things we're going to do, let's do them differently, let's think differently, and let's trust that today's conference will come up with new ideas of changing the world from what it is to what it should be. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, taking over from what the Chancellor said, we normally say in the business that institutions compete over 3 consumer or customer-related behavior indicators. The first one, we call it share of mind. The second one is share of heart. And the third one is share of sales or share of market or market share. And those 3 items or metrics are mainly concerned with competition. You could be doing very well competing with yourself over time. You can be the best within your area or within your institution. But the moment you start comparing yourself with others, then you learn to understand that it is not easy to forge ahead. I was actually telling the Chancellor that my first phone was Nokia. Now I can't even remember how it looked like. Now, progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. That was by Bernard Shaw, a playwright. So, my belief is that we are here to change things at the personal level, at the organizational level, and at the country level or national level. So what's the role of the university? The university can bring change through teaching and training. I hope that we are adapting and adopting new ways of teaching so that we don't use the same old notes that we were using before the technology. Some years back, a German article, or a journal article appearing in Germany, that article talked about the revolution in information technology as the agents of the knowledge society, and that their most important resources are education, training, research, and innovation. And the article went further to state that the knowledge society will transform social structures, and I'm sure you have witnessed that. The social structures have been changing in our country and totally reshape the world of work. Therefore, if we want to be able to meet the demands of the future, we will have to rely on one decisive factor, and that is lifelong learning. I would like to emphasize here, some of you who have been around, there was a book that we were reading back in the early 70s by somebody called Alfred Toffler, and it was called The Future Shock. That was the early 70s. The Future Shock, that book is still there, you can Google and you find it. And if you read that book, you can see what was being predicted at that time, and that is what we are witnessing today. And therefore, who knows, in the future, my friend Bernard Joroge here of Sky Foods, maybe he will be selling his treetops in the moon. Who knows? Things may appear very difficult, but never say never. What has been happening to poverty? Second question, what has been happening to unemployment? And the third one, what has been happening to inequality? If all the three of these have declined from high levels, then beyond doubt, this has been a period of development for the country concerned. So you need to ask ourselves, have these three been dropping as far as Kenya is concerned? If you say the answer is yes, then Kenya has been developing. But if it is no, and that is the second one, if one or two of these central problems have been growing worse, especially if all the three have, it would be strange to call that development even if incomes go up. And it could be more per capita income. And before I conclude, I don't know whether you'll be able to read that. For me, that is the summary of what I was trying to say. You have what we call innovative ecosystem, and at the center you have the ecosystem itself. You can see where you have got research. Let's restart on that side where there is research. So you have got the fundamental research, including doctorate degrees, and the patents that various universities come up with. And my feeling is this: as we deliberate and continue with this conference, we should be asking ourselves, as far as these 4 areas are concerned, to what extent are we contributing? What are our challenges? What are our strategies? So it is asking 3 questions. Where are we now? Where would we want to be? And how do we get there? The answers are with all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kibera and our Chancellor, for those words of wisdom. Incidentally, you need to note that later on we shall be having a session for you to ask questions or express your opinions. So as they present or they make those comments, you can note. We shall give you a chance to make those comments or pose those questions in a structured way. So may I welcome Professor Mutundu. Please welcome him. You can finish what I didn't say.
Thank you so much, Dean Professor Bibi. I am grateful to Great Star University for inviting me to make a presentation as a keynote speaker, and of course as a neighbor. This is a very positive gesture. And I was telling the VC that next time I pass Great Star, I'll not look at Great Star as a competitor, but as a brother whom we need to support each other. I can see in the gathering a whole range of audience, from professors, and at the back, students prefer sitting at the back. So I will attempt to make a presentation that appeals to both categories. Okay. This is what I think is critical. And I come back to that argument. Should we invest in new innovations or not? Absorptive capacity. And this discussion from the World Institute for Development Economics Research is very telling about what you can pursue in terms of discussions. That results from cross-country relations covering 31 sub-Saharan countries suggest that growth in Africa is not simply a question of capital accumulation, fertility rates, aid dependency, and stable macroeconomic environment. It is also about strengthening the capacity of African countries to assimilate and effectively use knowledge and technology. So it's how you absorb technology and not how and to what extent you produce technology, basically. So contrary to the views held by many analysts, the growth of African economies does not depend so much on their ability to innovate, but rather on their capacity to absorb and effectively use new technologies. So perhaps many of you will say now, I think now you are taking us from the path of what we think research should do. But it's a discussion that we can pick up. Should you worry about absorbing technologies, or should you worry about having new innovations? Okay. And then there are other components that I would get into. Human capital, products and technology, evidence-informed policy practices are also critical components that are not directly linked to economic development, but are also part of the process of economic development. Come to Vision 2030 that I was supposed to talk about. And again, I have a disclaimer on this. The best people to talk about Vision 2030 are probably government functionaries, because they put this together, and even though they argue that the The blueprint was a result of stakeholder involvement. I'm not aware, and I'm not sure how this came about. And that's just the problem with visions and agenda or plans. They come and we are told this is what we want to do. To an extent, they're informed by research and stakeholder participation, but they come to us. And one of them is the Vision 2030, that Kenya is supposed to create a globally competitive and prosperous, create a globally competitive and prosperous country with a high quality of life by 2030. And it aims to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all citizens in a clean and secure environment. And the vision, just some thoughts on what the vision had some very good ideas, but the way it came up, from my understanding, is that this strategy was put together in 2006, and 2006 was a time that I think, if you remember who the president was, again, an economist, and the NAC government felt that we had lost quite a lot. And all of us thought that over the years from independence to over the time that Kenya got its independence, we had lost so much. So within a few years, from 2002, actually 3 years, 2002 and 2006, Kenya's economy, GDP, grew up from negative or less than 1% to 6%. That was phenomenal, and this is credited to some level of efficiency. But nothing miraculous really happened between 2002 and 2006. Okay. So on the basis of this, then, it was hyped that if we can change the economy from 1% to 6%, we can do this up to 10%, and by 2030, Kenya will be a medium income level country. But my thinking is that honestly, with the inefficiency in government and how things were so bad in 2002, it didn't require even a vision. It didn't require anything miraculous to change the Kenya's economy from what it was to 6%. We've been unable to even sustain 3 or 4%. We are not sure what it will be this time. But that's the context in which Vision 2030 was developed, and I'll make a comment on that. But from the way it is, yes, we have a vision for, say, 30 or so years. Then it has all the sectors, the different pillars, and each of these pillars, the economic, political, and social pillars, has sectors under it, and then, of course, enablers and macro foundations. Please take note of this, the enablers and macro foundations, that you can do so much in terms of infrastructural development and inputs, but if you don't do much about enablers and macro foundations, we are unlikely going to get anywhere to what Vision 2030 is supposed to achieve. But that is the blueprint. And across the Kenya, this is what Vision 2030, it intends to paint the country with projects that will stimulate economic development. And as you can see, you are familiar with some of these projects. Of course, the standard gauge railway, the LAPSET project, and all these projects are a part of the Vision 2030. Okay. So these are just some parts of what the Vision 2030 are: a creation of international competitiveness through more efficient productivity at the farm and household level, and all the strategies and flagship projects will exploit knowledge in science. This is all that we have for, say, a 100-page Vision 2030. This is all that we have. And when I was looking at it, I said, am I missing something or not? And this is all that there is for science, technology, and innovation. That all the strategies and flagship projects will exploit knowledge in science, technology, and innovations in order to function more efficiently, improve social welfare, and also promote democratic governance. Science, technology, and innovation will be applied in all the lead sectors. The education and training curricula in the country will therefore be modified to ensure that the creation, adoption, adaptation, and usage of knowledge becomes part of formal instructions. A new incentive structure will be developed to support the use of science, technology, and innovation in specialized research centers, universities, as well as business firms and in agriculture. But between me and you, we know that what the government has done in response to this, the universities that they are talking about, the research centers they are talking about are the same research centers, are the same institutions that the government has withdrawn support for. So if we think that this is critical for development, that's not what actually the government is doing. So you do not expect then research, science, and innovations to contribute to that. Okay. At midterm, that's 2017, it's done in 5-year plans. Now we are in the third plan, I guess. And this is what probably you can think of for Vision 2030. And you will agree with some of them, and you may not agree with some of them. The standard gauge railway, the road infrastructure, energy and electrification, maternal health, devolved government structure, Huduma centers, a bit of good things in education, Nairobi being an economic hub. There are things that you can count and say that Vision 2030 is on the path. But those nice, fancy buildings that you saw in Vision 2030, I don't think you are likely to see them. And they will quote this as the reasons why, because of climate change. Because of balance of payments, they get a little technical on that so that the common person will not exactly understand what they're talking about. The balance of payments just translates into overborrowing, simple like that. Security, yeah, it has contributed a lot to that, especially the tourism sector tends to suffer very quickly from security issues and cybercrime. But you can discuss this and see what makes sense and what does not make sense. But there is also a certain level of sector variation. The communications industry, the M-Pesa type of things are doing fairly well, and we must give credit to that. But what I'm not sure is that is the M-Pesa story as a result of research. Does Safaricom do research? I'm not able to verify that, but I believe it is continuous thinking, and the innovations that come out of Safaricom are a result of innovations and finding out how they can remain relevant. So with that long story, thank you very much, Professor. I hope I was within time. Thank you very much.
My name is Bernard Njoroge. I am an entrepreneur. But before I became an entrepreneur, I was working for other people. I said I graduated with a degree in a Bachelor of Commerce way back in 1995, trained by Professor Kibera. And straight from the university, I started working in a company called Wonder Foods. When I was a student, I used to work there as an intern. So it's a food company. So when I graduated, I was offered a job straight from the university, and I became a brand manager at 25 years of age. And I worked there for about 2 years, and Standard Chartered Bank offered me a position to work as a graduate clerk. They doubled my salary, and I said, hang on a minute, this is an international bank, and you know the bank clerk that time was very prestigious position. I joined the bank, and I worked there for 1 year and 6 months. Then I realized I am not the kind of a person to be held inside a hall the whole day. because I could see my other colleagues who were salespeople, they were driving branded vehicles, and I wanted to be one of them. So I left the bank after 1 year, 6 months, and I joined a company called Orbit Chemicals, and I became a product manager. Product manager is a brand manager, because I had some of that experience working for Wonder Foods. And this was an Indian company, and they offered me a salary which was 3 times. I was earning 20,000 in the bank. These guys paid me 60,000. This was way back in 1997. So you can imagine those early days, 60,000 salary, and you have a nice car. It was a brand new vehicle. I loved it. And when I went back to the village and my mother saw me with the car, she was very excited because we never had a car before then. So I worked there and I grew the brand. I was in charge of these detergents, the Persil washing powder, that white washing machine powder. I was in charge of so many other products, households, detergents, etc., etc. I worked there for 3 years, and a position opened right across the ridge there at Del Monte. Del Monte were looking for someone to chart out their local market, because for many years they were growing pineapples, canning them, and shipping them to Europe. So they were looking for someone who has got good food experience. So the little food experience I had in Wonder Foods worked very well for me. I was hired to help start the local sales department. And I joined them in 1998. And I worked there for so many years. Most of my career was in Del Monte. So when you go to supermarkets and you find those Del Monte juice packs in tetras, I led the team that introduced that business for Del Monte, not only in Kenya, but across Africa. So I worked there for many years, and I built that brand until the Coca-Cola company also wanted somebody with the kind of skill set that I had. And you know how Coca-Cola works. For Coca-Cola to convince you to go and work for them, they don't just ask you to attend an interview. They called me from London, and they asked me, Bernard, can you come for an interview in London? And I told my wife, sounds very interesting. I mean, an interview in London? I never thought I would ever be interviewed in London. Took a plane, landed in London, interviewed with about 5 other people, and I was given I became tops. After 3 days of interview, they offered me the job. They doubled my salary yet again, started clocking 500,000 shillings a month. You can imagine, and I was about 32 years old. I called my wife and said, they're offering me too much money. What do you think? Should I take the job or not? She said, please take the job. So I took the job, and I flew back and I had to resign, and it was a big maneno, and I went to work for the Coca-Cola company. So it became the operations marketing manager for Coke, and then operations marketing director. I was coordinating all the bottling operations. Remember, Coca-Cola had 6 bottling operations: the coastal one, the Mount Kenya, the Nairobi, the Eldoret, Kisii, and Kisumu. So I used to sit down with all the managing directors of these bottlers, come up with an execution plan, and we pushed it through the market, and I became very, very successful. When I was away for 3 years, 3.5 years in Coca-Cola, the Del Monte sales started declining. And I got a call from Miami, and the folks told me, Bernard, since you left the business, our market share is declining, our sales are declining, do you mind coming back? And I said, yes, I would like to come back, but now I'm very expensive. They asked me, how much are you worth? I said, I'm worth $10,000. They said, yes, we can pay you $10,000, but it's not a big deal. And they said, okay, you can't call me a manager, you have to give me a director title. They said, no, you come in as a commercial manager, then after 2-3 years, we'll make you a director. So I went back to Del Monte in 2008, and I worked there continuously, non-stop, until 2014, when I decided to jump off the cliff and start my own business. However, when I was signing up with Del Monte, I told them, if you give me this position, you give me this kind of a salary, I am going to double your business in 3 years. And these are the initiatives I'm going to implement, or the strategies I'm going to execute to help me get those numbers. And believe you me, I actually doubled the business in 3 years. And how did I do that? I invested a lot of money behind distribution, behind new product development, behind consumer marketing, and also behind hiring new people to join me, and we doubled the business. But one of the ideas that I gave Del Monte was Because we are losing market share with the juices in the plastic bottles, we need to bring a fighter brand that can fight Afia. You have seen Afia is all over the place. I told Del Monte, we need to have a brand that can take on Afia, and it cannot be Del Monte. So they asked me, Bernard, which brand is this? I said, if we could acquire the Treetop brand from Unilever, then we reintroduce it as Del Monte, we can easily gain market share. So I started the process of negotiating with Unilever. I was given authority by Miami to start the negotiation until the lawyers in America said, we cannot buy this brand. And I asked why. They said, Bernard, we can't buy this brand because there's another company in North America called Treetop Incorporated that says they own the rights for the brand in North America, in Europe, among its other places. And therefore we could be sued in American courts and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I was told, stop the negotiation with Unilever. And then I said, I was so passionate about it. I decided to go back to Unilever and ask them, my principals have received they cannot buy the trademark. What if I may give you an offer as Bernard? And they asked me, Bernard, are you out of your mind? How do you expect to compete with big multinational companies like your former employer, the Coca-Colas and all, and Kevian, etc., etc.? I said, don't worry. If I buy the brand name, I can always look for money to buy to grow the brand and introduce it. So they asked me about how much money do you want to pay for the brand. I said, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have the deep pockets like Del Montes and these other people. They said, give us an offer. I went to a good friend of mine who works for the private equity fund, and I asked him, Paul, I've been asked to give an offer to Unilever for the brand. And he told me go and offer them a ridiculously low price of $5,000. That's $500,000. And I told my lawyer, I've been told to give them an offer for $5,000. My lawyer told me, no, Bernard, if you give them an offer for $5,000, they'll think you're not serious. Let's offer them 10. We offered them 10,000. It's about $1 million, Bob, that time. And they counted back and they said, pay us 15, and we are happy. I called the lawyer and said, pay them tomorrow. Pay in a hurry. Don't even waste your time. So that's how I acquired this name of Treetop, $15,000. A word of advice, when you're buying a brand, you don't have to pay so much money. Otherwise, it will take you so long to break even. You have to pay very little money because you have to invest money in a factory, you have to invest money in building the brand, etc., etc. But I keep on being asked by people, why did Unilever stop production of Treetop? They stopped production of Treetop for two reasons. Number one, there was a price commissioner sitting at the treasury, and he used to determine the price of everything before the Kenyan economy was liberalized in 1993. If you remember those early days, the budget day was a big day. The price of sugar, cigarettes, etc., was determined by the price commissioner. So the price that they were given to sell Treetop then, and those of you who never experienced it, Treetop in the olden days was in a glass bottle. It was a glass bottle, 700 ml, predominantly orange, very, very, very high concentration of orange. You could make 4 liters of juice from one bottle of 700 ml. So the price they were told to sell for, they were not making any money. That's number one reason. The second reason, at their head office, they decided we cannot compete. We are not a food and beverage company. We want to focus on personal care and detergents because we cannot compete with the Coca-Colas and all the other big multinational companies that sell juices. So they said stop. And then there was another third reason. Quencher came into the market, and Quencher introduced plastics. And that time, Unilever never believed in plastics. Remember, even the cooking oil Kimbo and Cowboy were in plastics, were in cans, lemkebe. So they were saying they could not put their products into plastic. And that's how they said, we cannot compete, let us pack the brand and forget about it. And that's why they were asking me, Bernard, are you out of your mind? This brand has been dead for 19 years. No one has ever come even to make an inquiry. And you are here making an inquiry to buy the brand. Who will remember? The people who are drinking treetop then, now they are elders. They have sugar issues, they have weight issues. They cannot take the product. We used to have complaints that he used to have a problem with the throat. And I told them, gentlemen, I have a lot of innovation pipeline that I'm going to put around this brand, and I'm sure I can be able to capture market share. So, I acquired the name Treetop in 2011. 2011, that's about like 80 years ago. It took me 1 year to put a business plan together. Some of the young people think it is easier to put a business plan. It took me 1 full year. Remember, I had an 8 to 5 job in Del Monte. And me, when you hire me, you give me a contract, you tell me you work for me Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, I'll honor that. Because honesty and integrity is key. Because if you don't do that, you will not go very far. I'm among the very few business people in this country who believes in following the straight and the narrow. I don't cut any corners. Even on my sourcing of my raw material, even on my distribution, on my pricing, or my recruitment policy. I follow the straight and the narrow. So it took me 1 year to put a business plan together. And remember, I'm a trained marketeer. I'm a sales and marketing guy. I believe I'm the top marketing and sales guy in the whole world. Trained by a professor here. So I didn't understand the P&L, the financials, the balance sheet. I got someone who was an expert in finance. I gave him a contract. He told me he's going to charge me 3 million shillings to put together the whole business plan. And I told me, yes, Daniel, because I need this business plan to raise $2 million in terms of investment funds. I will pay you once I raise the money. If not, I'll convert it to equity. You become a shareholder in the business, whatever number that shall be, whether it be 2% or 1% or 0.5% of the total money we raise. And we signed an agreement. And then we started. After 1 year, I had a business plan, 67 slides, that I started now looking for funding. The funding was not easy. It was very stressful. Of course, when you're building up a business, you talk, number one, to your family, to the friends, and then financiers. We call them the 3 Fs. Family, friends, financiers, and sometimes the financier, we take the family, the F, to you can call it the fools. Because somebody must be foolish enough to give you money against a business plan. You do a business plan, and you go to a presentation, very passionate, and tell people, I need $2 million. I'll buy a machinery from Italy. I'll bring it here. I'll put it together. I will produce. I'll pasteurize. I'll sell and make you a profit in year 3. But believe you me, we convinced these guys. But initially, we had to go to the commercial banks, thrown out. Went to International Finance Corporation, thrown out. Business partner South Africa, thrown out. But the key thing, when you're an entrepreneur, you do not give up. I knocked on so many doors. It took me 2 years to fundraise. And remember, I'm fundraising during the weekdays. So what I could do, because of my integrity and honesty, I would take 1 day leave. Then I can go to my investors. The breakthrough happened when I approached ICDC, Industrial, Commercial and Development Corporation. It's a government entity. After pitching to them for about a week and a half, they asked me, give us 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, they called me, they said, Bernard, you have a business case. We shall give you a term sheet to give you $500,000. And then the balance you can raise from the other people. So with an ICD term sheet, it was so easy to get money. Because by the time I was finalizing the fundraising, I had $2.5 million in the commitments. So after all that, I managed to get all the money. In fact, I remember I was calling some investors and I would tell them, before you get a call from my lawyer, I decided to call you because we are refunding you the money. And then everybody was like, no, Bernard, we need to go into a room, let's get diluted, etc., etc. But what I did is very simple. I sold 60% of the company for $2 million. Because you don't have to own the whole 100% of the company. It is better to have 40% of a $1 billion size business rather than having 100% of a very small pie. And that is what now drives entrepreneurs like ourselves. You don't have to own the company 100%. Sell shares to people, spread your risk, and that is how we did it. The key thing when you become an entrepreneur, you have to be very passionate. I always advise, invest in an area whereby you are so passionate. Learn a trade. Remember, I worked for Del Monte for 15 years. So I learned all there is to be learned about juice. If you wake me up at midnight and you bring me a juice from all the competitors in Kenya, I know them by taste. I can tell you this is Kevian, this is Del Monte, this is because I've learned that. I have built lots of networks across the whole world. When I fly to Europe or to Spain or to Africa, many places, I get people to come and pick me at the airport. And that's why I've been able to push the brand into that place. Then finally, especially for the young people, there is no substitute to hard work and discipline. Hard work and discipline. If you cannot put 16 hours, 18 hours, and have a discipline around so many things, especially on things like alcoholism, I don't go to the bars. You know, young people want to spend all the time in the bars listening to music and eating nyama choma. You will never make it. Do them, but do them in moderation. Only then can you be successful. Yes, so that's the end of my presentation, and thank you very much.
Wow. I don't know what to say except to wonder that we have Kenyans like this. Thank you very much, Mr. Njoroge, for the inspiring story, which is very relevant to us, especially the young people we're trying to mentor. So now, may I invite questions?
Good afternoon. I'm Josephat Murioki from Greater University. And my comment is not a question, but I want to comment about the Vision 2030, about what Professor Kennedy said about the issue of absorption capacity. He said that it is not about how much a country innovates, but how countries absorb the new technologies. So I just want to concur with that perspective, because like when you look at Kenya, Kenya is a country which is very good when it comes to innovation, and we can give examples like M-Pesa. M-Pesa has been credited as one of the most innovative idea, which has translated into business. Now the question is, if we have all these innovations in our country, why then do we continue to lag behind? If you compare ourselves with the tigers, like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, even there's a time when Kenya was giving aid to countries like Indonesia and Singapore, and Kenya is highly respected in those countries. But now, with the time, we stagnant and we were left behind by the tigers. So I think there's a problem there. As much as we have the Vision 2030, we have to rethink about our systems, our efficiency, and other areas where we are lagged behind.
Okay, my name is Marlin, and I have a question that goes to Professor Kennedy. And my question is, how will we as Kenyans, according to your point of view, how will we as Kenyans ensure that we invest more in research and innovation while we are having debts and other interior challenges and conflicts? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Oh.
Yes, my name is Kipruta Patrick. Yeah, a student of education. So my question goes to Mr. Bernard Joroge. You know, I'm a serious young Kenyan who have many business ideas. But the problem, I don't have money or capital to start a business. So my question is, how can I get capital in terms of money? Or how can I get donors to make my dream successful? So second thing is that I request for job opportunity in your company or choose company. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's okay. Let's have the last question. I think you will. It's okay, please.
Good afternoon.
Please, yeah.
My name is Peter Wambua from Kenyatta University. I just have a concern. The first person I met when I came in here is Mr. Bernard Joroge. What keeps you humble and very kind, and also you're able to sit down and share with anyone? Because we met, we sat down at the same table, and in fact, I'm very shocked that you have been able to achieve all this and you can just interact with anyone in the society. And my last concern is, what are your plans in the area of corporate social responsibility moving forward? What are you planning to do in Thika, in Juja, and helping the less privileged in the society? Because I also work with the less privileged in this nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, I must say this is very exciting, and whoever said that making sure that students come for platforms that we think are for professors, I think is not quite right. The questions that I've received are largely coming from students, and I'm very encouraged, and I will respond to those that I'm able to. But I'll start with the one that I find most fascinating. If you don't remember, I will, by Christine Mwende. Christine Mwende, I believe she is a student, but she said, I'll do a bit of paraphrasing, that Professor Mr. Njoroge has a vision, you don't. I said, okay, now this is getting a little serious now. And Christine, it's okay that not everybody has a vision, but I'm not one of those people who don't have a vision. Maybe there could be somebody, but I think I do. It just depends what kind of vision. Njoroge had a great vision. He still has a big vision. I had a vision to teach in the university and to be a professor. That was my vision. And I still have a vision of being a vice chancellor like a professor here. So, but a little more seriously, Christian, is that my vision is about working for a university and working in the university. And if I was at Gretsa here, this is what would excite me. Discussions of issues, challenging issues, and saying something that is totally wrong, and you would be my best student to question what is right. So my questions and doubts about Vision 2030 arises from my own profession. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a bishop, I'm not a business person. I'm paid to question ideas and to say what is right and what is wrong. And on that note then, Christine, understand that my doubts about Vision 2030 are based on the fact that Vision 2030 needs to be interrogated, we need to ask questions about those who developed that vision. Why did they develop it? Where have we failed? We can only reach where they said we'll reach if we continue asking those questions.
Thank you, Professor. Quite a number of questions, really, a lot of them. I'll try as much as possible to cover each one of them. There was one from Stephen. Do you engage in research in your company? And the answer is yes. We do two types of research. We do what we call usage and attitude survey. We talk to the consumers across the country, and we want to identify what kind of brands they're consuming, how many times in a week, in a month, etc., etc. And we also do retail audits. We come to a place like Thika, out of the total universe of the outlets, how many are stocking our brands, etc., etc. So two types of research, usage and attitude, and then distribution check. There's another one here, your plans on CSR moving forward. We are still a very young company. We are about 5 years old. And the first 5 years were purely formative. We were trying to set up the basics, the foundations, etc., etc. But we look at our CSR is leaning towards tree planting. We are working with Total Eco Challenge to help plant a lot of trees. And the reason why is that we use 60,000 liters of water every day. 60,000 liters to make our juices. So with that kind of usage, we want to be able to come together and plant more trees so that our water towers, the Aberdares, the Mau, and all these other places, we can have enough water. Because without water, we cannot be in business. So that's the first area we are looking at in terms of CSR. There's a question about humility and why have I been so disciplined despite all these achievements. That's a hard one. I would say it's because of the upbringing. I was brought up by a very old father. My father, when I joined Form 1, he was 71 years old. Yes, it is true. He was 71 years old when I joined Form 1 because he was a tough Mau Mau fighter. He spent 10 years in Manyani prison because he was giving the top-notch oath and he refused to confess it. So he stayed in for 10 years. So when he came out, he spent a lot of time with me in the village down up here in Gatundu South. And he used to tell me a lot of things. Two things he told me: never smoke and never take beer. Not because it's a curse even if I die tomorrow, but they are not good for you. They are not good. And he said this for so many times, nearly every day. So it is sunk in my head. What you get from your parents, when they tell you your father, your mother, it becomes very powerful. And I think I became humble because of that. And of course, he went through a lot of challenges, take me through school. You can imagine joining Form 1, he was 71, practically retired. I remember when the letter for admission to go to the Goretti High School came in, there was no money in the family. And he had to sell the only cow we had. You know this small cow, the zero grades cow? He had to sell it to the butchers, to go and cut it up into meat and sell. Then when I was Form 3, Form 4, he leased half of the coffee farm to the richest man in the village for 15,000 shillings for them to farm our land for 10 years so that he could see me pass secondary school. So because of that upbringing, you cannot now become an arthead because you can see the sacrifices your parents have put for you. And he told me before he died, because he died 30 years ago, he told me, you are 9 because you are 9 in the family. I'm the 4th born, named after my grandfather from my mother's side. He said, I can see, Bernard, you are 9 in the family. And when I look at all my children, if ever 1 million shillings will ever check into this compound, it will come through you. Nobody else. It will come through you. And true to that, that is what happened. I remember when I was given the first boom, and remember the government was giving us boom when I was in high school, I took 5,000 to him to share, to tell me how much I should take back to university. And he told me, Bernard, I told you, you are going to bring money. After 3 months, I brought another 5,000. So it's because of the upbringing, you cannot become an arthead. You have to be very humble. And he told me, help all the other people. So I help all the other siblings. That's where the humility comes from. And it's purely because of my father and my mom. And the same question comes from Moravi. With all the money that I was earning from campus, to me it wasn't a lot of money because I had so much responsibility. You know, I'm in charge of 8 siblings, so I have to pay their school fees and stuff like that. So that's why even when Coca-Cola doubled my salary or Del Monte doubled, I was educating my siblings, and I have uplifted all of them. The other one is on a question about what types of students do I take for internships? I don't have anyone. I look for attitude. Whether you are doing tourism, you are doing food science, engineering, marketing, finance, I take. If you have the right attitude, you are enthusiastic, you can get an internship in my company. I have a big dream. I want to have 10,000 people working for me. 10,000. Currently I have about 120. We're opening the oil business, the drying facility in Naivasha. We'll open up other factories down in the Mombasa and across Africa. My dream is to have 10,000 young people. And my inspiration came in when I saw Kibaki expanding the higher education. At one time I saw 100,000 graduates coming out of the university. And I said to myself, if you set up businesses, you can get educated people to do for you, to work for you. There is another one here about the capital. This is from Kipruto. If you have a business case, Kipruto, and you have enough experience, you have a track record. Remember when I went looking for investors, a lot of people told me, Bernard, even if you take out the name Treetop from your face, we will still fund you. You have the passion, you have the drive, we can fund that passion. So if you have a business case and a business idea, you can get funding. If you want my help, I'm ready to help you. And then you say you request for a job opportunity in my company. When you finish the university, come, I'll hire you. You're the only one who has asked. I'll give you a job. Because he has asked. He's the only one who has asked. So you come. I'll give you my card after I leave, before I leave. There is another one about how is your entrepreneurship skills contributing to societal change. Remember the farmers I talked about. We're impacting over 20,000 farmers. I'm reaching more people with the passion fruit idea. And of course, I said I want to create over 10,000 jobs in the market. There's somebody asked me at 25 years I got a job, and how did I manage to save a salary at that age? Because most youth misuse money looking for beautiful ladies. This is what I said. I keep on telling young people, discipline and discipline. And discipline is around two things. Discipline around alcoholism, discipline around relationships. If you're going to be a young man and you have got 10 girlfriends, you are a young girl, you have 10 boyfriends, you will never focus, you never build a business. You have to be disciplined. And it starts here. You have to be very intentional as an entrepreneur that this is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve. And I said because of my upbringing, I could not get into that kind of a problem. There are quite many. There was one from, apart from creating profit and employment, the number of students dropping. I'm educating about 4 students. This is from my home area. Because I also help the widows in my village. I'm educating 4 children. I write for them checks for the full year school fees. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Professor Wabuke Bibi. I'm the academic dean of Gresa University, in charge of all the academic programs. This conference is dubbed the 3rd International Multidisciplinary Research Conference because it is coming after 2 others we've had before, and we are running it on the experience of the past 2 conferences. The theme of this conference is basically transforming society and organizations through research and innovation efforts. Now, this is because we recognize that the role of universities is actually research and innovation, but the consumers or the use of this research information and innovation is actually change in society. So this is merely defining the role of universities in driving societal change and development. That's why we call it that way. Now, as far as participants are concerned, we are very happy and very privileged that we are patronized by the highest governance organs of the institution, starting from the Chancellor himself, Dr. Kibathi Mbugwa, the Chairman of the University Council, Professor Francis Kibera, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Thuo, and 2 council members, Professor Peter Shallow and Professor Mukunya. These are members of the Governing Council who have been with us and supporting us all the time. So we would like to really thank them, first of all, for being around and for their leadership, but also for giving us inspiration, because they help us interpret the theme in broader perspective. So we would like to thank them most sincerely for being with us all through. In addition to this, governance officers, we are lucky to have keynote speakers who have a wealth of experience in various fields. We have Professor Kennedy Mutundu from Mount Kenya University, who is a renowned scholar with very wide experience in societal issues, societal challenges. And we are also privileged to have a renowned and very inspiring entrepreneur, Mr. Bernard Joroge, who shared with us his experience in developing from being a student to being a successful entrepreneur. Very inspiring. We want to thank them for their being there to help us. So they helped us to understand and appreciate the role of research as applied to national development. This is really the end result. We are looking forward that from this research that we have now, the next conference we hold, which will be next year, the 4th one, will benefit from the experiences we have now. So we hope to be able to produce a better product. We hope that also our students and staff will be much more inspired, much more interested, much more committed, more participative. We are hoping also that the relationship we are forging between various institutions, universities, and so on, as well as private industry, will grow stronger. And when we put all this together, we are sure that we will make an impact on society development. Thank you very much.